Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we are going to take a look at Pluto's last stand in the sign of Capricorn. Pluto is going to be retrograding back into the 29th degree of the sign of Capricorn, coming up pretty quick here. And so I thought we'd take a look at it today. I'm going to run through all 12 whole sign houses for your rising sign. So these will be like very mini horoscopes. I'm going to give you a few thoughts, a few keywords and topics to fit with the last couple of months that we're going to see from Pluto and Capricorn here. I hope that you'll find this useful. We'll also review on some of the basic or core themes that Pluto and Capricorn may bring up, kind of focusing in general on the sign of Capricorn and with the Plutonian twist. And I'm also going to review the timeline of Pluto and Capricorn that we've been through already, just to really stand back and go, holy shit. Wow, it has been, there's been a lot. So that is our agenda for today. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. We are getting closer to 68,000 subscribers, which means we're just a couple away from that goal of 70. I want you guys to know that our monthly average of subscribers has doubled since I started doing this little subscriber drive. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate those of you out there who listen to the channel, haven't yet subscribed, subscribing and helping us grow. It makes a big difference to us. So we appreciate you. Transcripts of any of these daily talks can be found on my website, nightlightastrology.com. And I want to point out a few things that we have going on. If you missed last night's talk on the 8th house, you're going to be able to pick up the recording of it. Go to the live talks. It'll still be up. And when you purchase that, you'll get the recording rather than the live webinar. But I think you'll enjoy it. It was a good talk for sure. Also, coming up in September and October, 2 more talks. We're going to be looking at Venus through the zodiac. What story does Venus tell about love and relationships based on sign position in your birth chart? There's a lot to learn about Venus, and I think you guys will really like that one on September 19th. And then October 17th, Myth of Astrological Compatibility. What everybody gets wrong about the astrology of relationships. You're going to hear my take on what kind of astrological compatibility techniques work and which don't. So, on that note, I also want to refer you to our Astrology for Beginners course. You'll see under the courses tab, the first little box down is Astrology for Beginners. When you click on that, you'll be taken over to this page where we have a pre-sale going on for a new class that we have. This is a class that is meant for absolute total beginners. This is people who are starting at the bottom floor and, ready to learn more. We recommend this for people who are absolute beginners who are also maybe thinking of taking our first year course and then maybe our second, third year course, our horary course, masterclass series. We have so much educational material at Nightlight. And sometimes we get people who are really starting at zero and we say, okay, this class is for you. There are 8 modules, all recorded. These classes are not live. It's a recorded class you go through at your own pace. The pre-sale is available until August 27th, at which point the normal cost will be there and the course will be released later in September. And you could listen to that and take it in time for enrollment for our first year program in November if you wanted to. So anyway, thank you guys for letting me go through that. Let's turn our attention now to the real-time clock where we are looking at Pluto retrograding at the 0 degree mark of Aquarius here on Friday, August 23rd. And I want to just take this forward a little bit. And what we're going to notice is that the sign change happens imminently. We're talking in about a week. We have like 1 week left of Pluto in Aquarius, and then it goes into Capricorn. Let's see how long it stays in Capricorn, and it's going to stay at that 29th degree where it will turn direct about mid-October. And then it is gradually at the 29th degree going to work its way back to 0 Aquarius right around November 19th. So we have, maybe like add it all up, you've got like 2.5 months worth of Pluto retrograding back into the sign of Capricorn. Look at how long this journey has been, though. Let's take this back a little ways. And what I want to highlight here, oops, I need to go back just a scotch. All right. Okay, here we go. So we're going to see that the original ingress of Pluto into the sign of Capricorn took place in the early part of 2008. So early 2008, we see that Pluto has moved into the sign of Capricorn. And I think the actual day, I mean, if you're kind of curious about that, here we go. Well, it looks like it would have been around January 25th into the 26th of 2008. So that is just a really long time. I mean, when we add that all up, 2008 to 24, it was like 16 years that we have been working with this Pluto and Capricorn signature. Now, Pluto in the sign of Capricorn, there was a little retrograde initially back into the late degrees of Aquarius, just like there is happening with Capricorn now. And you can see that Pluto's kind of around 2009 really establishing itself in the sign of Capricorn. And then, you know, it is a long, slow unfolding after that. And what were your highlights? That's a good question for the chat box today. Like between 2008 and 2024, what have your Pluto and Capricorn highlights been? I'll give you an example. For me, it was, let's see, I'm just going to pop this along here, take this along the timeline. And when you go forward to right about here, this is February of 2014. This is just after I got engaged and Pluto started opposing my moon. And then my parents went through a divorce. And that happened during that year. And then I was married subsequently. And then by the end of 2014 or the beginning of 2015, my wife was pregnant. Pluto's opposing my moon still in Capricorn, or conjoining my moon in Capricorn, I should say. And then, you know, we bought our first home and had the baby. Right. So that was like my first, and my parents went through a divorce during that period of time. Then we go forward a little bit. My next big one was getting into right about 2019. Pluto started opposing my sun, and that's from the 3rd to the 9th in my house. And there's a lot of things that happened, but one of them obviously was that I was initiated into a Bhakti yoga lineage and had a guru and changed my name. And I still laugh at it because it was a very meaningful experience in my life. It was also a pretty wild ride overall. I went to India a couple of times. The YouTube channel really took off. So it was a powerful and interesting space in my life for religion, philosophy. And there were a lot of other things that happened, but the big one was obviously the culmination of a lot of religious experience in that Bhakti yoga world and eventually changing my name back. So anyhow, those were my two highlights because I got the sun and moon in Capricorn and Cancer, sun in Cancer, moon in Capricorn. What were yours? Like what throughout this period of time, I thought this would be a fun question to pose today. Look back, you know, it's a good moment to take a look back and appreciate where we've been. So between 2008 and 2024, which transits of Pluto and Capricorn hitting maybe planets in cardinal signs, for example, through the conjunction, square, or opposition were the most impactful? Or did Pluto go over your ascendant, midheaven, descendant, IC? Those are impactful transits as well. How did Pluto affect the topics of the house that it was in your birth chart? It was in my 9th house. And during this time, this entire period of time also came alongside of studying astrology, launching my career in astrology, developing my school, my daily content. That's all been Pluto in my 9th house, place of spirituality, religion, the place of astrology in ancient astrology. So anyway, good exercise to take a minute with. Now we have, like, let's bring this forward again to the present moment. And let's now look at how long Pluto is going to stay in Aquarius, just so you get a feel. I'm just going to advance by year. If we're thinking about it as having started in 2023, we'll just kind of give it the full treatment. Then it really does look like the last, if I've got this right. Yeah, so it's right about here. This goes until January of 2044. So Pluto in Aquarius until January of 2044. That's almost 20 years. Pluto stays a little different length of time in every sign because of the shape of its orbit around the sun. very slow moving planet, of course, but spends a different amount of time in every sign. Some very long, some shorter. So long period of time in Aquarius. I mean, this is taking us all the way until, I mean, me, I guess I'll be in my 60s. That's wild. So, just a little bit of the timeline. What I'd like to do now is I want to talk about Pluto in Capricorn, and I'm just going to put this squarely in the 29th degree. And I want to remind you of what house topics are being activated based on rising signs. And these are not meant to be like elaborate horoscopes as much as they are little horoscopic reminders. Okay, so the idea here is that, oh, here's my epic pen. All right, so the idea behind these is that we should just take a minute to review and remember which topics are going to be active. After I do this, I want to talk just a little bit in closing about the kinds of things that Pluto in Capricorn will likely bring up, especially as it's in the grand finale stage right now. So let's start with Aries rising. If you're an Aries rising, the work of Pluto for so long has been in the 10th house, the place of your career, your public identity and reputation, the degree of your success or notoriety, the role that you play in a more social dimension of life, even if you're not employed or working. It's your reputation socially, and it's where you find yourself engaged with the civic social arenas of life. So the work of transformation that began in 2008 is culminating there right now. And it's good to start thinking about where you've been and what is the very last bits of work that you're doing as things finish. For Tauruses, this is me, this is my rising sign. I've known this 9th house, but all of us Tauruses out there, we've got this in our 9th house, the place of religion, spirituality, beliefs, the place of learning and higher education. This is the realm of sages and academics. It also pertains to foreign countries and travel abroad and exposure to cultures and places other than our own home culture or place. This is also a place that speaks to how we perceive and understand truth. And so there has been much change, much deep, profound learning in this house over the years for Tauruses. And the learning is in a place of culmination coming up in the next few months. So watch for that and reflect on that. For Geminis, oh, thank God for Geminis is getting out of your 8th house. Now, if you attended my 8th house talk, you know that this isn't the world's worst place. It has a bad reputation, and for some good reasons, but largely this is a place of the karmic exchanges of our lives, those people that we are indebted to and that are indebted to us. And that is not always a bad thing. There is much that we receive from others who love and value us. There is much we give to others whom we love and value. And then there are also those complicated entanglements where the give and take may be more about social, professional advantages or opportunism, and the complications and entanglements of that kind of karma is often a little stickier. But here we're talking about the completing of a long period of transformation with respect to our bonds with other people, what other people have and give to us, what we owe to them, what they owe to us. There's a long period of work for Geminis that has been done in this area that is now culminating. It's a good time to reflect on it and a good time to finish things up. For Cancers, this is taking place in the realm of love, marriage, and relationships. For a very long period of time now, Pluto, the Lord of death and rebirth, has been at work in the place of marriage, love. Sexual intimacy was also originally associated with the 7th house. This is a house that Pluto has been working through for so long now, 16 years, if you take it all in total. And so what are the very last things that you're meant to learn right now with respect to intimacy, with any kind of interpersonal connection or relationship to other people, with respect to the way in which partners or intimate friends are meant to be agents of change or transformation in our lives and in us in theirs. So this brings to a head a long period of growth and development around love and relationships for Cancers. All right, we go to Leos in the 6th house. Well, thank God we're getting Pluto out of another difficult house, right? The 6th is a place, Pluto's been here obviously for a long time for you Leos, and we're talking about a place of carrying a weighty sense of duty and obligation and work and service and responsibility. That Capricornian energy in the 6th house is very chop wood, carry water, sacrifice on behalf of things that require sacrifice, that are worth it. And are you seeing the fruits of your labor? Are you seeing also maybe a change in philosophy with respect to work or your attitudes or perceptions around work? These would be normal changes to mark the culmination of Pluto in that house. And also, I wonder about transformation with respect to things like health and disease, and also the expenditure of energy, time, and resources, and what is a worthwhile form of work or sacrifice, and what is exhausting you. These are the kinds of culminating lessons we might be seeing for Leos right now, with Pluto finishing up in the 6th. So for Virgos, we're looking at a very long process. Pluto has been in your 5th house for 16 years, thereabouts. And this is a place of creativity. What is your creative essence? What are you here to give to the world through acts of creation or creativity? What brings you joy and happiness and a sense of creative fulfillment? What brings you just general happiness? What makes you feel good? The questions around these topics are a little deep and heavy for Virgos. Virgos don't always have the easiest time accessing that joyful, carefree, flowing state of happiness, because they're very careful and concerned and meticulous, and they have a service-oriented attitude. It's not always so easy to access joy. And so, not surprising, we see Saturn-ruled Capricorn in the 5th, where sometimes the experience of joy or happiness or sensuality and pleasure, all associated with 5th house, which is called the joy of Venus, not as easy to find, because Saturn tends to be maybe a little repressive or tends to be a little difficult. So what has the transformational process been like for you with respect to joy, pleasure, things like children as well come into the 5th house? So culminating lessons in that 5th house of creativity, joy, happiness, children for Virgos. All right, we go to Libra. And with Libras, we see that the culmination of Pluto is taking place in the 4th house. And the 4th house is the place of home. It is your property. It is your home environment. It is your family, whether that's your immediate family or your family of origin or your extended family. What have the changes and transformations been like with respect to your home, your living environment, your family? That can extend into marriage even in the 4th house, because it can be extended to mean the family of your own creation. So you, your spouse, your kids, as well as your family of origin, your parents. So there are some last final things happening here with respect to family karma, home and living environment karma in the next months. And they are reflective of the long process of transformation that began back in 2008. So watch for that, Libras, and reflect on where you've been. Scorpios, you've got this happening in your 3rd house. This is the place of the environment and culture around you. It includes friends who are like siblings. It includes siblings and cousins. And like, I think, what's the saying? Kith and kin. It's like that. And the 3rd house is like the fish tank that you live in. It's the environment, psychically, emotionally, mentally. Scorpios have been going through a long, slow process of changing their minds, of cultures and environments changing, of learning new things and changing mental outlooks, of changing communication styles and patterns, of changes happening with respect to siblings and the people around you. It is as though the environment of your fish tank has been going through long, slow, gradual changes over the years, and now we have some culminating changes. These changes may also reflect the changing nature of who you are. When we change, the environment changes to match or suit us better. And so I would watch for these mental, emotional changes and larger environmental or cultural changes, as well as major changes within the realm of siblings or people who are like siblings taking place here this fall. Obviously, that's if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. And so those are also the places to reflect upon if you're a Scorpio. What have you been through over the past, 16 years? All right, Sagittarius rising takes us into the second house of assets, money, resources, possessions. You've been going through a long process of building things, transforming things, accepting a deeper role of duty or discipline. Oh, the Capricorn energy in this house can be very productive, trying to transform the karma of money and values and or your relationship to what you own or possess, or how you value what you have, and so forth. So a lot of interesting work that's taken place there that's now culminating. What are the final touches in this long process of transformation that Pluto will make here in the next couple of months with respect to things like assets, money, and resources, how you spend them, income and expenditures, things like business and assets. Think about all of those kinds of topics going through one last period of transformation, but also think back and look at where you've been. For Capricorn risings, this is in your first house, which is the place of body, health, and identity. Here there is a long, slow process of personal death and rebirth, physical death and rebirth, psychological death and rebirth. The transformation of character is complete. You are ready to complete the process of change that began back in 2008. It has been a long, slow, arduous journey of looking deeply inside of yourself to understand new facets of your being, to bring forth identity transformation and even physical or health transformation. And that is finalizing now in these last couple of months. Finally, we have for Aquarians, isn't it nice that Pluto will be getting out of your 12th house soon and coming into the first house, where it brings from an unconscious space a process of integration, awakening, and personal transformation. See, that's the thing, is that Pluto in the 12th house has been like a very long, slow process of laboring with unconscious material that will now have the opportunity, as Pluto comes into your first house, Aquarians, to be integrated and understood as a part of who you are. That unconscious material coming now from the 12th into the first carries with it the promise of recreation. Like, you get to become someone new. You get to die and be reborn, as that process of unconscious material is now coming forth into the space of conscious and physical and psychological awakening and processing. It's like, now I get to see what's been going on behind the scenes with Pluto in the 12th for so long. So I think that is a really promising thing, but you have to visit one last little layer of unconscious material, you might say, in the next couple of months. Finally, for Pisces, we have Pluto finishing its long process of transformation in your 11th house, the place of friends, the place of allies, the place of groups, networks, colleagues, and the place where we find some form of social belonging or advantage, or we find social cohesion and harmony with others that have the same values and aspirations. We find beneficial connections with people. It's a really nice house, but Pluto in that house has suggested a very deep level of ongoing change and transformation, exploring the dark side of friends and groups, transforming your relationship with friends and groups over a long period of time. You have one last little layer of the onion to peel back here in the next couple of months. And then Pluto's going to start going into a very deep and relatively unconscious space in the 12th house, which I think will coincide with a long period of time in which you're going to start, your dreams, the level of processing you can do in therapy and other forms of spiritual practice are going to be greatly beneficial to you when Pluto's in your 12th. And you've already gotten a little taste of that. But finalizing the process of change and transformation in the house of groups, allies, friends, benefactors in these next couple of months. So with that being said, I hope those were useful reminders for all of you so that you can look at these next months with some sense of what topics are likely to be activated. But I also want to talk in closing a little bit about some of the Capricornian themes we're likely to see. So if you think about Pluto, you think about a planet that's work is always to be pulling and dragging things from unconscious space to conscious space through process, but also through moments of great catharsis and moments that carry a kind of signature of eruption, like a volcano that's erupting. Pluto likes to pop karmic pimples. And Pluto also, through process, gradually brings things up from the depth. What comes up from the depths, you could describe as a process of purgation and healing and cleansing to release things that are pent up that might be sort of toxic. But also, when things are released that are toxic, the refreshing feeling that comes in afterward is the feeling of regeneration. Ah, a toxic thing is left. I'm healthy again. On the other hand, and that feels good. On the other hand, the release of this energy is also a primal creative force and energy. It's not just toxic or sick stuff that has to go. That's one way of looking at it. But another way would be to say that Pluto brings up and releases great primal energy, like instinctual primal force that we might be a little afraid of, but when it's released, boy, it changes our lives. It makes our lives more creative, or we can access deeper levels of intimacy in our sexual connection with a lover, or we can access deeper parts of our creative essence in our career. So Pluto will coincide with a release of great creative energy from someplace unseen or unconscious or a little stuck, or, because often we're afraid of it too. Simultaneously, Pluto can dredge up things that are unconscious and dark that need processing and need greater awareness. So it can do all of those things. And in the sign of Capricorn, you think about the sea goat as a sign that has to do with, with Saturn, there's always a sense of something that's distant. And here in Capricorn, where the light just starts rising out of the darkness, the distant goal is the summer solstice, is the climb to the top of the mountain of transcendence, where the light is like a picture of enlightenment. And the pictures of enlightenment and climbing up to the top of the mountain coincide with one another in so many different traditions around the planet for thousands of years. Climb the mountain, get to the top, reach the light, reach enlightenment. Capricorn can take that archetypal mission, that sense of rising up from a lowly place and having to work and claw your way up the earthy, gritty mountainside, which is the world of hierarchies that exist that are very real. No matter how much we like them or don't like them, they're real. So when we look at, the hierarchy that says, I want to become masterful at playing an instrument, you compare what you have a range of, beginner level, you have representations of a beginner that you see and notice, and then you have great masters of a musical instrument. And that's the sort of hierarchy that's established. And the beginners are at the bottom of the mountain and the masters are at the top. This is one of any number of ways that Capricorn often will conceptualize its goal in relation to a hierarchy, and then just start climbing. Start chopping wood and carrying water, start carrying the cross up the mountain. And there's a kind of single pointed focus that Capricorn has that's gritty, that's earthy, that's very realistic, that will do what it has to do to get where it wants to go. Of course, the distortion or like dark, perverted version of all of this is power, wealth, greed, success, fame, beauty, and the hierarchies of those things in the world, and the desire to have those things for the sake of dominating other people, or for more base egotistical reasons. And that's obviously one of the things that has made Pluto in Capricorn a very dark, at times a very dark transit, is that we have had many examples over Pluto's stay in Capricorn of the underlying motivations that people have for wanting things, like wanting to succeed in various arenas in life. I think about, one of the great TV series that came out during this period of time, Game of Thrones. That's a very Capricornian series, by the way. And if I'm remembering correctly, George R.R. Martin has some real Capricorn going on in his chart. But anyway, J.R.R. Tolkien, also the Lord of the Rings. That series has so much to do with the development of rings of power and that allow lordship over the earth, and then the desire to destroy those things. And Capricorn is also a sign that truly is about the hard, difficult work of valuable, transcendental, beautiful goals that require real grit and work and sacrifice to get there. Like Frodo has to go a long way and through a really gritty process to destroy the ring, which is just as Capricornian as the potential for, the development of a Dark Lord and the Rings of Power itself, right? So that's the light and dark of Capricorn. Tolkien was a Capricorn sun in the fifth house of creativity. You can see the arc of that story in the light and dark side of Capricorn is presented in the Ring of Power, the Lords of Power, the Wraiths, and the need or desire to go through a long process, climb up a mountain and destroy that ring. So Capricorn is a journey of enlightenment. For those of us who are doing our homework, Capricorn lends us the grit, the determination, the discipline, the maturity, the sort of respect that we need for the seriousness, the gravitas of this mission of life to pick up our cross and go for it, So there's a little bit of work left. We have a little bit more to carry. We're not quite there. It's like in these last 2 months, maybe it's a little bit like, those last difficult steps Frodo has to take to destroy the ring, to reach a place of transcendence, to complete a goal that is worthy and noble spiritually, that required a lot of hard work. On the other hand, we can also see the last lingering elements of ego and our desire to succeed in various areas that undermine us, and that we may have to do some purging around some of our ambitions and like why we're doing things, and whether or not they are in alignment with our highest self and the cultivation of our highest self. So these are things to think about anyhow, as we reach this last little stint of Pluto and Capricorn. I hope this was useful for you today. Don't forget, you can check out our beginner's course on sale through the 27th. Just a few more days. If you missed the 8th house webinar, you can pick that up. And yeah, we'll see you again soon. Bye, everyone.